YouTubers, and welcome to another Masters of the Universe Classics review. In today's review I'm taking a look at a very special 2-pack, which is Snake Armour He-Man versus Battle Armour King Hiss. So this is very special because these two figures are based on the 2002 version of He-Man, which also had the Mike Young Productions cartoon, which is what I grew up with. So if you've been following the Masters of the Universe Classics line from the beginning, you'll know that these sorts of figures, we were told that they weren't going to happen. We were told that the 2002 redesigns were now off limits, they were retiring that look, and they just wanted to make the vintage figures from the 80s and just redo them with modern techniques. Now we're seeing figures that we never thought we would get to see. So, enough chatter, let's begin by looking at the packaging. The figures come packaged in the standard brown shipper box. Once out of the shipper box, the figures come in the standard 2-pack packaging, featuring all of the same design elements from the Masters of the Universe Classics style guide. And the back of the box shows off other Snake Men figures in the line, as well as character biographies for both He-Man and King Hiss. I'm going to start off by looking at He-Man. As ever, we're going to start with the articulation. So, He-Man has a ball-jointed head. As you can see, lots of nice movement there. He has ball-jointed shoulders, which can swivel out to the side and rotate all the way around. This arm doesn't have the same amount of movement, and the reason being is because of this large shoulder piece. Now, as you can see, it's quite malleable. It is only soft rubber, but it does hinder the movement in this right arm. He also has articulation at the biceps, which can do 360 degrees, like so. Articulation at the elbows, and articulation at the wrists. There's also articulation at the waist. He also has articulation at the hips, so the legs can swivel back and forth, they can move out to the side, and they also swivel at the top of the hip as well. And we have articulation at the knees, so they can swivel back like so. And also articulation at the ankles, so that they can move back, although actually this is very stiff. I'm not going to try and force it because it doesn't seem to want to move. Let's try this side. Well, he does have ankle articulation, but it's very stiff on this figure, which is good. I'm glad, because some of the previous figures have had very loose ankles, which has meant that figures do tend to fall off the shelves and things. But otherwise, it's also all standard. And of course, he has ab crunch articulation as well. So very much the standard articulation of a Masters of the Universe Classics figure. So, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the details. Let's begin with the head. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we were told that we weren't going to see this sort of design of figure. Now, I thought that we might see the Snake Armour figure, but that they would do it very much in the classic style. He-Man's head would look just like the same as all the other He-Mans that we've had in the past, the same mould that we've had for our standard He-Man ever since 2008 or whenever it all started. But this head is completely out of the Mike Young Productions cartoon. As you can see, the hair is quite stylized, it sort of flicks to the side. Apparently older He-Man fans like to refer to this as sort of like the surfer look, which I can see it now that I've been collecting the older styled He-Man figures for such a long time. I really like this look, and I really like this look because this was the cartoon that I grew up with. So I have a natural affinity to these style of figures. The face here seems a bit more detailed than the previous figure. He's got quite a stern look, but he isn't gritting his teeth like the standard Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man. He just looks stern, but, you know, there's heroism to him as well. The hair, I've already mentioned that it looks more wavy and surfer-like, but there's some really nice details going on here. Very nicely sculpted to begin with, but unlike the other versions of He-Man, this version has lots of nice washes to just break up the hair. So if you look closely, you can see all the browns in there, which really get into all of the gaps and stuff, and it just makes the hair look more textured, gives it more depth. It's really well done. So if you move down to the torso, here the armour is all fixed to the standard Masters of the Universe Classic buck. So this is the same body that we've seen since the very first He-Man figure in this line. But unlike the other versions of He-Man, here his armour is not removable. It has been glued down to the torso. That's not a problem for me, because I wouldn't want to take it off anyway. You will also notice that this portion of the body, so the ab section, and actually just a little bit of the torso here, that's all been painted silver to make it look like it's all part of the armour as well. The armour itself has a lot of really nice details. You can see the buckle and the strap on the side there. You can see all the bolts and rivets across the armour. The classic Iron Cross symbol is in the centre. Now, strangely, on the original 2002 figure, this was actually slightly to the side. I'm not sure why they didn't do that here. Maybe they thought if they kept it more central, it sort of fits in more with the other He-Man figures. You know, it seems more of a continuation of the standard He-Man armour. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. At first I thought, oh, that might bug me a little because I'm so used to it being on the side. But actually, it doesn't bother me at all. Again, some really nice paint apps here. That gold really stands out. The red against the dark silver in the middle. Very nice indeed. The shoulder section on He-Man's armour, again, lots of detail. You can see that there's this interesting sort of bumpy, bubbly texture to the top here. But again, you've got all these rivets. You can see here that it's sculpted, so it's almost like it's scalloped, that it's in sections. And we also have the snake being stabbed with a sword motif, which was featured in the original figure and was also featured a lot in the second season of the Mike Young Productions cartoon. Further down the arm, we have the gauntlet, which has extra details as well. We've got the gold and the red. That seems to be very much the colours for this figure against the silver. So the shoulder and the bicep that they're using here looks like it's been taken from King Hiss because it uses that scalloped-like mould. So on the back, you can see there are more nuts and bolts, and there's also a place to house He-Man's sword. Moving down to what would traditionally be the loincloth piece, here we have lots of different texture, lots of layers. You can see that the leather effect has been sculpted into each of the separate pieces. There are all these bits of metal and buckles attached to here, there and everywhere. It's very, very detailed. It looks like it's probably too much going on, but actually when you look at it, it works very well and complements each other. And finally, if we move down to the legs, you can see there are lots of armoured pieces going up from the shins. The feet themselves are the standard feet that we've seen on lots of figures throughout this line. And you can see that the armour has, again, lots of details, more of that sort of scalloped effect, lots of bolts, and even some battle damage. You can see that there's a slight nick in the top there. And this is the same on the other leg as well, lots more battle damage. So I think you can definitely agree that this is one very cool looking figure. There is so much going on here, but it works so well. Also, he comes with two accessories. The first is the pincer on his gauntlet. This was frequently used in the cartoon so he could grab and trap snake men. It's a simple sculpt, but it works well. And this just clips into the gauntlet so you could have it displayed with it out as if he's about to attack a snake man with it, or you can pull it out and display it as if he has retracted it. And finally, he comes with the 2002 electronic power sword. So we have actually seen this before. One of these came with Man-at-Arms, and another version also came in one of the weapons packs. Again, because I grew up with this cartoon, I've always liked this design of sword. I think as I've got older, I've grown to prefer the original sword, but having it here with this figure, it does feel right. It does feel like this is the sword that should go with it. I was kind of hoping that they'd also include the sword which has the green energy thing in the middle, which you see in one of the episodes of the cartoon. I think it's the final episode of the cartoon, actually. And unfortunately, that doesn't come with it, but it is actually pictured on the back of the box and on the bio, which is strange. But yeah, that would have been a nice addition. But overall, yeah, nice details. It's just been moulded in a standard silver. Some elements here have been painted with a darker silver, just to break it up, which is nice. And we, of course, have the red cross in the middle. Overall, this is a fantastic figure. I absolutely love it. I love that we've got a 2002 He-Man head. It means a lot to me because that was my He-Man. I like this armour. I've always liked this armour, so I'm glad that we've got this in the Classics line as well. I'm really thrilled that we've got this figure. And of course, because we have this head, it now means that we can make our own 2002 inspired He-Man. So if you have the King Grayskull figure, you can just do a head swap and make him look like he did in the 2002 cartoon. Or of course, you could put it on your classic He-Man body to have a modern and vintage mashup. Okay, so next let's move on to King Hiss. Well, Battle Armour King Hiss, as they are now dubbing him in the Classics line. So again, let's begin with the articulation. Very much the same as with He-Man. Articulation at the head. It is ball jointed, but you can't get an awful lot of movement out of it. Now this is because of this very large helmet piece here. Now it isn't actually that pliable, it is quite solid, so you're not going to be able to get an awful lot of movement out of it. He has all of the standard articulation, so his shoulders are ball jointed, they can swivel out to the side, they can rotate. He has articulation at the biceps. I'm going to have to hold the shoulder in place so it doesn't all turn. As you can see, that can swivel. Elbow articulation that swivels as well, and articulation at the wrists. He also has ab crunch articulation and articulation at the waist. And at the hips, you can see that his legs can move forward, backwards, out to the side, and again they also swivel at the top of the hips, like so. Now, because of this very large loincloth piece here, which goes all the way around, it really impairs the movement, so you can't move his leg forward that much, or back, or to the sides. He also has articulation at the knee, and he has articulation at the ankle, which swivels back and forth. Only very slightly, though. As you can see, there's not an awful lot of movement there. So, very much standard articulation for a Masters of the Universe Classics toy. Now let's look at the detail. So, again, this is based on the 2002 version of King Hiss, and again, I much prefer this version to the vintage toy. It's because I grew up with it. For me, this is what King Hiss looks like. I was always very disappointed with the original figure that we got in the Classics line, which I will compare and contrast in a bit. So I'm really thrilled that we've managed to get this more monstrous version. If we begin with the head, King Hiss, this version is humanoid, but you can see there's something serpentine about him. He's got this very long face, very angular, these very nice deep lines in his face. He's got this really great evil expression. It's done in a pale green, which again gives him more of a snake motif. And he also has these piercing red eyes, which look really good. The cowl piece has been painted in a metallic gold, which has then been highlighted with bronze around the top. So unlike He-Man, you can remove King Hiss's armour. If we just look over here, you can see that there are the pegs and that just peels off. This has actually just been put straight onto the standard He-Man buck, as you can see underneath. The arms here, the shoulders and the biceps have been taken off the previous figure. All of this piece here, that's all brand new. So you've got the snake motif in the middle, which we've seen on pretty much all of the Snake Men, I think. And then you have these other sections, you've got these bolts which have been painted gold, and you also have this gold trim around the outside. It looks very regal, and I think that's what I like about this figure. He looks very regal, very ceremonial. He looks like a king, which I don't think you really got with the previous figure. Now the loincloth piece, this is very interesting. There's a lot going on here. We have the belt piece, which has a snake sculpted onto it, including the teeth, and then this red sash that flows down the front, which almost looks like the tongue of a snake. And then the main loincloth piece, that's been sculpted with all these scales all around. And then as you can see, the belt has been highlighted with that same gold and bronze paint job. It's really cool. There's some fantastic details here. You can even see the seams that have been sculpted into it, and also the thread has been painted slightly darker so that the individual threads stand out. Moving down to the lower leg, he has these shin guards which have snakes sculpted onto the sides. Again, this bronze and gold paint. And then around the back, you have the buckle and leather straps. And finally, Hiss has sandals on his feet. Again, you can see the straps, the individual little pieces painted gold. Very nice details. And his toes, which have also been sculpted really well with these very long toenails, each of which have been painted, which make him look even more monstrous. So just like He-Man, lots of amazing detail, which makes for a very impressive looking figure. And he also comes with his own accessories. We have the standard snake staff, just like the one that he came with the original figure. And again, this has been really well sculpted. You can see all of the scalloped scales on the underside and the pattern on the back. And he also comes with his snake shield, just like the previous figure, but this time it's brown rather than red, and it also has a sort of glittery metallic sheen to it. Now there is one glaring omission with this figure, which is King Hiss's other form. Now, King Hiss has two forms. He has his humanoid form, and then beneath this fake skin, he has a mass of writhing snakes and pythons. Now, this figure sadly does not come with that. However, we have been told that that version, that body, that torso piece, will be released with another figure later this year as part of the line. So we will be getting it, but sadly it's just not here at the moment. But as you can see, if I just take King Hiss, he comes apart at the torso, like so. It's a bit tough. You just need to get the right grip on it. But if you've got the previous figure, you will see just the same. So that comes off like so. And for now, at least, until we get to the new torso, you can, of course, take the original classic look of King Hiss and display it like that. Personally, I don't think it works. And this was another one of my issues with the original classic figure. I didn't like this snake torso body. I just didn't think it looked frightening enough. So I am so pleased that we will be seeing a more monstrous version later on this year. And so here are the two versions of King Hiss together. Very different, incredibly different. If you look at the classic one, much more human. But personally, I do prefer the newer look. I like that he looks scary, even in his humanoid form. I like all of those elements. I like the more grand design, the more ceremonial look. Like I said, he looks more like a king than he does in the other version. He looks like he should be leading an army of snake men, whereas the other version just looks like a guy in a green suit. So I know that's not going to be to everyone's taste what I'm saying there, but that's just what I think personally. So I'm really pleased that we've got this new version of King Hiss. And if you have the Snake Man at Arms figure that came with the Serpent's Ring accessory, we can now give it to King Hiss, because this is the King Hiss that actually used it. It was from the 2002 cartoon, and it actually looks so much better in this figure's hands. So overall, this is a fantastic 2-pack. Both figures are amazing. I don't have any faults with them whatsoever. I love them both to bits. I'm thrilled with them. And if they're not already gone on Matty Collector, then you should definitely try and track them down, even if you have to try and get them on eBay. An incredible set of figures, both really great additions to the line. So thank you for watching, guys, and I shall see you next time for another Masters of the Universe Classics review. Thank you for watching!